It's another beautiful day in paradise. Welcome to Bird News and Views. I'm your host, Don Burgess, and with me today is Transport Minister Lawrence Scott. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
It's a pleasure. Now, is this your first time with us? Are you a Colt?
Yes, it is.
So you'll be going for your 100. Um, we're going to talk a little bit about initiatives in the throne speech, and then some other transportation issues. But the throne speech was given last Friday. It seemed a little light on issues regarding transport, but what initiatives are there in the throne speech that people should know about?
Okay. The mention in the throne speech is very condensed. So there's a lot to unpack in the little bit in the few words that were used in the throne speech. And so when you talk about the harmonization of the license fee for public service vehicles, that is really bridging the divide between the minibus operators and the taxi operators. That's also trying to make sure that there's efficiencies that are brought into play, because remember, the objective of the transportation ministry is to provide safe and efficient transportation throughout the island, and that is the overarching precipice or the overarching plan and way forward for the ministry. So when we talk about harmonization, it's harmonization throughout the whole ministry, just making sure that things are as efficient as possible. So that's the first part. Then when we talk about modernization of various aspects of the Motor Car Act 1951, that's the big thing is putting everything on a digital fare medium. Now, a digital fare media is what allows for persons or passengers, customers, to use their cell phone or their credit card, debit cards as payment, and or as a tracking service, meaning that all things remaining equal over the course of the next legislative year, you should be, when we're having this conversation next year, you should be able to look, if you're catching the number 8 bus, go into your phone and find out exactly where that bus is. If you get to the bus stop and you don't see the bus, be able to go on your phone, the scan a QR code or something of the sort, and know exactly how far away the bus is. Also, when it comes to, that goes for ferries as well, that also will go for the taxis and minibuses as well. So that's where we're starting to go in the general scheme of things, and that was a bit too much. That would have taken up 3 or 4 pages of the of the throne speech. So I couldn't be selfish and try to take up all that space. So we just try to condense it and saying modernization of various aspects of the Motor Car Act 1951 and harmonization of the licensing fees.
Yeah, we'll start with the second part of that first. I know I've been to Washington, D.C. A little bit over the last year, not last year.
Yeah.
But I know using the transport system there, they have an app where you can track where the buses are, and I found that very helpful. I could like if I was trying to rush because it was supposed to be at 12:10, and I'm looking and it's 12:05, and I'm trying to get there, and I say, oh, the bus is a little bit behind. I've got a few more minutes.
Yes.
I thought.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just trying to, because remember, we are a tourist destination, and we are catering to customers that are used to modernization. We are catering to customers that are able to go into their phone and track their subway, track their train, track their taxi, and even track their Ubers. So we're trying to make sure that we stay up to date and provide the most efficient, safe, and timely, reliable, timely, and consistent public transportation system that the island should have, and that the residents have come to be accustomed to.
Right. I think you also said like people could use their credit cards on the buses, like a little tap feature and go.
Yeah. The tap and go should be there. We would also have, and I don't have we're looking at trying to make sure that any additions to the fleet that we make is in line for the long term, meaning that it should have Wi-Fi accessibility. We're doing our best to make sure that it has that it is green, meaning that it's safe, it's easy on the environment. It helps provide a clean and safe environment. We're also looking to see if we can find a bus that is able to accommodate those that are differently abled, and that also that has the little technological features that we like maybe Wi-Fi on the buses or something like that. But also we're looking to have passenger counters. So because if you have the passenger counters on board, as the passenger gets on, it counts that that person's there, and we now have real-time data to allow for us to see what are the high yield routes, what are the low yield routes, and then it allows us to try to adjust in the future, adjust any schedule changes based off of real-time data and how we might be able to make the public service or the bus route or bus fleet that much more efficient.
Well, I know one of the big stumbling blocks to get streamlining the bus system and getting a new schedule out is getting the accurate counts as to where you need the buses. So this seems like it'll be very useful.
Yeah, and that's what we believe. Once again, it's about, if COVID has shown us anything, it's about trusting the science and trusting the data. And we just have to get the real world, real-time data as best as we can. And that's just by using technology.
Yeah. So how many new buses are we expecting in 2021?
Well, right now, a defined number has not been determined yet. We're still going through doing our due diligence. But what I can say is that currently our bus schedule needs 88 buses to be sufficient without any cancellations. And we currently have 65 basically on a good day. But one thing that we are doing is trying to make sure that we can at least find a way to get to that 88 number. So that's what we're looking at. We're seeing if we can do it. We've got to make sure that we've got the budget for it, especially with new budgetary constraints. So right now, I can't confirm any specific number, but I can confirm that our schedule calls for 88, and we currently have 65. So we would need, at the very least, we would need roughly 25 buses.
Well, we're not going to really expect 2025 this next year.
I mean, that would be an amazing feat if we were able to get 25 buses all at once.
But this part of this goes into the ongoing Achilles heel. The transport department is the bus runs are still being canceled. When can we expect that to be fixed? Or are we going to have to wait until we get all these extra buses?
Well, essentially, the only real and realistic solution is to get the new buses, because the team at DPT is doing an amazing job with the tools that they have right now, making sure that we have the smallest number of cancellations as possible. The maintenance team is doing an amazing job. The bus operators are doing an amazing job. The team that does the scheduling, they're doing an amazing job. They're working flat out to make sure that we have as limited number of cancellations as possible. But with the depleted fleet that we have, that's just it's sort of hard to say when that's going to come out, when we're going to have no cancellations. But for me, I am cautiously optimistic that by next year this time we would be cancellation free. That is my goal. That at least by next year this time we'll be cancellation free.
No, I know for your colleague, Deputy Premier Walter O'Ban, this is a big issue. But when will we see electric buses in Bermuda? Will they be in 2021, or is it going to be after that?
I'm confident. I'm cautiously optimistic and confident that the next fleet of buses, if and when they arrive, will most likely have some sort of electrification attached to them, because that is one of the criteria that we're looking at, as I mentioned earlier, going green and being good on the environment, and that's electrification. That, as I said, it's going green, good on the environment, a good price point, able to be easily manufactured. Because as you remember, the Achilles heel so far has been that we've been having to get specialized and custom-built chassis, custom-built buses for the roads. And so we're trying to see if there's a way that we can get around that, to find a production bus that is ready to go, just ready to go. We can roll off the assembly line and come straight to Bermuda. But then also the other criteria is trying to see if we can find something that helps and caters to those that are differently able. So if we can find a bus that does all 4 or 5 of those things and ticks all 4 or 5 of those boxes, that's the Holy Grail.
Right. Going back to the throne speech initiatives, the first one that you mentioned, the harmonization of fees between taxis and minibuses. What seems to be the main issues with regard to that? I know taxi drivers feel a little bit hard done by at times.
Yeah, no, that's true. And the thing is that what we have is an ever evolving industry. And so what's happened is that we do need to provide a diversified service. So the taxi operators are providing a apply for hire service, while the minibuses apply or provide prearranged transportation and/or tours. But what we need to do is that the fees in which they charge, that's something that we need to make sure is harmonized. You can't have a taxi that has to charge more than a minibus, or a minibus that charges more than a taxi, because what ends up happening is that when you have a visitor that goes from Dockyard to Horseshoe in a taxi and then pays one fee, and then comes from Horseshoe back to Dockyard in a minibus and pays something else, one way or the other, either coming or going, the tourist, the visitor feels as though they're ripped off. So they're getting ripped off without somebody is trying to charge more than the other. And so therefore we were trying to make sure that there's a harmonization across the board there, so that there's no miscommunication or misunderstandings.
There's just going to be a little bit of a case of Solomon splitting the baby in two, which nobody would be happy.
Well, I mean, it might be that case, but I believe that we are able to the team here, the ministry has a plan, and it's going to take consultation. It's going to take communication, and it's going to take talking to both and listening. The most important thing that my team here at the ministry can do is listen to the different stakeholders. Really listen, understand, and take away what they're really asking and what they're really looking for, and then trying to find a mutually beneficial solution that for both, that can dovetail both, one seamlessly into minibus industry and seamlessly into the taxi industry.
Now, well, let's switch to the airport a little bit and air flights, because one of my passions is studying COVID, and when can we forecast any sense of normalcy to our air routes and air passenger numbers?
Okay, so that's two different questions in one. So air routes and air passenger normalcy is slightly two different things. That's almost apples and oranges. But what I understand, if I understand what you're saying correctly, ICAO and IATA both project that passenger air arrivals, passenger numbers throughout the world will probably return back to pre-COVID numbers in roughly 3 to 4 years.
Wow,
Now,
that's a little bit overwhelming and depressing at the same time.
Yeah, but with that said, I just want to put out the historical fact that Bermuda always seems to punch above its weight. That Bermuda seems to always move a slight. Well, once again, I'll use COVID as an example. We're a world leader when it comes to testing in our jurisdiction. We're actually world leader. We're tier 1, meaning that we are recognized as one of the safest places by the CDC. So what does that mean for our air arrivals? There is a good possibility that we could see air arrivals arriving back to pre-COVID numbers a little bit sooner than, or it is hoped that we can arrive back to pre-COVID numbers a little bit sooner than 3 to 4 years.
Right. Now, I guess that brings up the sticking point with the airport and the airport deal with Skyport. Is there any progress in negotiations with regard to supplementary payments because of low passenger loads?
Well, the thing is that there was some progress that was being made. We did have a verbal agreement by the representatives of Skyport and Acorn here on island that they were looking and open to renegotiating the schedule, the payment plan. But then when we pushed to get that in writing, they ended up going back on the deal and saying no deal, that we're not going to do it. So that's sort of the nature of the beast. That's where we are. We had gotten. We were getting our hopes up that they were actually going to do the right thing while we're in a time of shared sacrifice. We were thinking that they were going to actually show that shared sacrifice, show that partnership, that last P in the PPP, public-private partnership. We were hoping they were going to show that they were real partners, but they've shown that they don't have any cost-saving measures in place. They've shown that they are not really willing to work with us, and that they just basically they just want what they want when they want it.
I was thinking, like, when BA announced that they were going to be scrapping their flights for a month, that was going to be another blow to those
Yes.
costs there.
Yeah, no, it when it comes to the supplementary payments, yes, that's going to affect the supplementary payments. But once again, you've got the team at the Bermuda Airport Authority that knows this contract inside and out, and they're going to try to find ways to make sure. And their legislative mandate is to protect Bermudian interests at all costs. So we're going to just make sure that Bermudian interests are protected as best as we can, and as best as they should be, and just continue to move forward, because it is a dedicated team of Bermudians that are overseeing Skyport every step of the way and making sure that we hold them to every letter, dot, semicolon, comma, and period that is located in the project agreement.
With the whole controversy over the deal aside, the good news is the airport's supposed to be open soon. When is it going to open?
Okay, well, I just want to be pedantic for a brief minute. The airport has never been closed. Even during COVID, all of that, the airport never was closed. There was a suspension in commercial air service, which was brought on by COVID, which the decision was made by the airlines to suspend their operations. And so therefore what we are seeing is an opening of the new passenger terminal building. I know that we tend to get it confused, but if anything, if the negotiations with Skyport have shown us anything, they've shown us that they are very pedantic with the language that's being used, and they try to use that language, that common vernacular of closing an airport, as justification for once again not wanting to come back to the negotiating table with us.
Okay. Well, it's sort of like we all refer to it as the new hospital, but really it's just
Correct.
It's just
Correct.
another addition to the old hospital.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's the scheduled date of the new terminal opening?
My understanding is that it is December 8th or 9th.
Okay. And what will happen with the old terminal?
That is, to be honest, that is up to Skyport. They control that building. My understanding, as it is right now, is that it will most likely be demolished and replaced with a new building of some sort.
Okay. Let's go to the other end and go to the cruise ships. When do you see or forecast the cruise ships returning?
Now, cruise ships, I foresee cruise ships returning probably sometime in early April. As it is right now, to protect the Bermuda people, the government has decided to put a stop on any cruise ships. So there are no cruise ships allowed into Bermuda waters until at least April 1st at the earliest, as we see right now. Right now, the cruise ship industry is working on a healthy sail panel, meaning that they're working with all the general stakeholders in not just Bermuda, not just the Eastern Seaboard, but within the Caribbean, to put together a health and safety policy for how the reintroduction of cruise ships is going to go. What are we going to do, and how are we going to protect and make sure that there's no unintended consequences, meaning that what happens, how do we stop an outbreak from happening on board? What are the cleaning and sanitization policies and procedures going to look like? So therefore, when you do see that cruise ships coming back to Bermuda, you know that they have gone through a very rigorous cleaning process, and that they are just as safe to allow back into Bermudian waters as it was with the airport and the reintroduction of commercial air service.
Now, you may not have seen this, but yesterday, on Saturday, the first cruise ship in the Caribbean returned. It was the Sea Dream 1, left from Barbados with 53 passengers. And yesterday they had somebody test positive for coronavirus. So this is
this is why Bermuda is not. This is not a race that we want to win. We don't want to be the first to be the first jurisdiction to allow cruise ships back into port. This is something where we learned in COVID. It's best to sit back, watch, learn, and adjust from others. But also what is planned is that prior to having the resumption of regular cruise ship service or regular scheduled service for cruise ships, there will be test cruises where they use just the family and friends of the cruise ship executives and the cruise ship workers and their operators to go on board, go through the whole process, make sure that the process works, and just go from there. And once again, we're not rushing to have cruise ships come back, but we are looking forward to them coming back, if that makes sense. We're not rushing to have them back, but we look forward to have them back because of the economic impact that they have on the country. That's taxi drivers that go back to work. That's minibus drivers that go back to work. That's the onshore or off cruise ship excursions that Bermudians have, and so that's your local entrepreneur and small business owner. That's all those businesses up in Dockyard that will start seeing revenue. So we need the cruise ships to come back, but once again, we need to make sure we do this right, because you don't get a second chance to do this the right way.
Now, I'm guessing it's probably not practical to test everyone off the cruise ship like we do when the planes come in. They have 3,000 or 2,000 people all at once, and then make them wait for the results.
But actually, the thing is that this is not necessarily about efficiency. It's about what's best for safety. So we are anticipating testing everybody on the cruise ship. We are anticipating having cruise ships persons tested before they get on the cruise ship and before they get off the cruise ship here in Bermuda. So once again, the testing regime that we have in place is not being amended for the cruise ship passengers. They will, as of right now, they will have to test 3 to 7 days prior to arriving, and then test again prior to getting off the cruise ship and getting the results. We are not playing with this virus. We're not playing with the safety of Bermudians. We're making sure that they test negative prior to getting off, and we're even taking into consideration the recent day 4 and day 8 positive results. So we're actually going to possibly recommend that they increase the number of tests prior to getting to Bermuda. But once again, that is something that we're in negotiations with. We're discussing with the Department of Health, and we will not be moving forward without the Department of Health's okay.
Yeah, because I know like the cruise ships are only here for 2 or 3 days at most. So like for a passenger, if you're having to stay on the ship for 8 hours that first day, waiting for your result to come back could be a deterrent.
It might be a deterrent, but that's everything that you're saying now about cruise ships and testing is the same thing that they said about airplanes and testing. Oh, if we test too much, the passengers aren't going to want to come to Bermuda. If we have it so strict, people will go elsewhere. But look at our COVID numbers compared to that of the rest of the world. I think that it's not something that we're willing to negotiate on. It's not something that we would prefer. We with the Ministry of Transport, and I believe I can say speak just for the Ministry of Health real briefly, is that we prefer quality over quantity. We would prefer to have 100 persons that are negative and known to be COVID free than having 1,000 passengers and have one of them come off positive.
Now, this is quite interesting because, like, with our partners down at Wedco and down in Dockyard, if they come in, let's say at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they all get tested by 10, and then they have to wait 8 hours to come in, could there possibly be some cooperation between government and the people who own shops down in Dockyard to extend the hours that they're allowed to be open so that the people off the ship have more time to enjoy that first day?
No, that is something that goes outside my remit of transport. Once they get off the ship and they're not getting on a taxi or a minibus or anything like that, then that's outside of my remit. So it would be inappropriate for me to comment on that.
Okay. Well, this seems like a more reasonable approach, because I know, like on the cruise ship that left from Barbados this week, the passengers were only allowed to go to private beaches and not mingle with the public. So
and the thing is that that's what's called bubbling. So they do that. What the cruise ship industry wants to do is bubble tours, meaning that as you said, they can only go to certain locations and they have to stay in these certain groups. That does not work for Bermuda. So therefore, we are trying to say, how can we ensure that persons can see Bermuda and that everybody can feel the positive economic impact from the cruise ship passengers? And that is something that we have to work with the Ministry of Health on to make sure that they're okay with. And so we're trying to find very creative solutions that keep Bermudians safe, but also allow them to feel the economic relief that will come in with cruise ships.
Well, Minister Scott, I just want to give you a chance to sort of wrap anything up, anything you want to say in particular to the Bermudian public about transport for this next year.
Okay, well, the one thing that I want to say is that what you will see is a focus on efficiency, modernization through the use of technology. That's what you're going to see. So once again, we anticipate to seeing a total removal of cancellations from the bus runs. We look to see more efficient taxi service and minibus operations. We are also anticipating to be able to announce sometime over the course of the next legislative year at least one new air route, and we're also looking to be able to welcome the reintroduction of cruise ships. So once again, hopefully by the end of this next legislative session, you'll start to see us going back to not just normal, but a more efficient normal. And we couldn't do this, I couldn't do this, the government couldn't do this without all the different hands and stakeholders that are playing a part, from all the civil servants here in the ministry, to the mechanics at DPT, to the marine port operators out of St. George's that have helped keep us up and running through COVID, meaning that they're the ones that take the pilots out to the ships and bring those foods, and pilot those ships that bring our food supplies and all our supplies in. Those guys at the whole team at the airport that is working tirelessly. They go on first to clean the airplanes. They go off to offload the airplanes and make sure that our air routes are still being serviced. So once again, the taxi operators, bus operators, everybody in the transportation industry I want to raise their profile. I want to thank them because they are the unsung heroes of this country.
All right. Thank you. This was a very interesting discussion. I learned one of the things I like to do is learn new things all the time, and your information was very valuable. You know, from the planning apps for the buses to the cruise ships being able to come back. So, really appreciate having you here today, Minister Scott.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. If anytime you want to have a conversation, just let me know.
All right, thank you. We want to thank again Transport Minister Lawrence Scott for being on Burn News and Views for his first time. He'll get up to his 5-timer jacket at some point. I'm your host, Don Burgess, and as always, have a beautiful day.